Hello, everyone. I'm just giving you a video to kind of introduce you to the topic of the 1960s. I hope everyone is well. First thing here, we're just going to do a quick overview before we get to your activity. We're talking about the beginning of the 1960s. When we covered the 1950s, we talked about the beginning of the Cold War. We talked about the Red Scare, and now we're getting into a new decade. The economy during the 1960s begins very strong, coming off of all of the expansion in the 1950s due to the baby boomers, which we also talked about. There was increased life expectancy. There was also increased agricultural yields, especially in the Central Valley of California. The government is going to be increasing spending on national defense, and this is uh, entirely due to the launching of Sputnik. And we talked about that in the last segment we covered. The Soviets launched Sputnik, which was an unmanned satellite. But to the United States, this was a scary development because it means that they won the space race. So, in response to Sputnik, the US is going to increase educational spending, particularly in the areas of science and technology. In California, this is going to mean the development of something called the California Master Plan for Education. And it was a K through 12 plan, but especially the parts that cover higher education became an important part of this plan because it was the first model of this system in the country. And now a lot of people emulate this system. It means the establishment of three tiers of university. UC stands for University of California. There are now 13 UCs in California, and those would include things like you see here, California, Cal Berkeley, UC Berkeley. UCLA would be another one. In our valley, we have UC Merced. The next level down is CSU, and that stands for California State University. And that would be like Fresno State, um, Long Beach, that you see the seal for that here. CSU Stanislaus, locally, Monterey. So there's 27 of the CSU campuses. And then the next tier is the community college system. I do not know how many community colleges there are, but examples of that locally would be like West Hills College, um, Fresno City College, and all of those were developed in response to this National Defense Education Act, or as a result of it. So that happens in 1958. As juniors in high school, you have the A through G requirements. Those requirements are your portal into this tiered college system. And the only type of university that's missing from this list that we're looking at is the private universities like Stanford University or Fresno Pacific University. Those would be examples of private universities. So the Defense Education Act is, I mentioned, a result of Sputnik. They wanted our students to be able to compete with the Soviet Union and develop technologies. And the focus later will become putting an American on the moon, which will happen in 1969. The election of 1960. At this point, President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon had been in power for 8 years. So Nixon is going to decide to run for president as a Republican, and the Democratic nominee is going to be John F. Kennedy, who at the time was a senator from the state of Massachusetts. They are going to have a televised debate, and a lot of people think that this televised debate is what won it for Kennedy. He comes across much better on television, and I'm going to kind of show you an example here in a second. What you are looking at does not have sound, but what you're seeing is Nixon and Kennedy preparing to have a televised debate on TV. And you can see that if you notice, Nixon's kind of wiping off his face. The television lights are very bright and you sweat a lot. Nixon refused to wear makeup. He thought that was girly. And so as a result, he comes across on TV as kind of, unshaven. He's got dark circles under his eyes. And even though those are very shallow aspects of, a presidential debate, the way he came across made him look a little shifty. So as a result, Kennedy is going to win in a very close election. JFK, those are his initials, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. His domestic policies are going to be nicknamed the New Frontier. And as you recall, the presidents we've learned about so far, they have these programs that they nickname, like FDR had the New Deal, for example. JFK is going to be controversial from the beginning because he's our first Catholic president. And a lot of Americans thought, he'd have more loyalty to the Pope than he would to the United States. So there was a lot of suspicion about that. When he delivered his New Frontier speech, he outlines a lot of very lofty foreign policy goals. He fancied himself a communist fighter, but what's really going to emerge in his presidency is more domestic issues. His biggest foreign policy challenge is going to be the Cuban Missile Crisis, which we'll cover next week. But the biggest domestic issue is going to be the beginning of the civil rights movement. He does propose a raising of the minimum wage. As we mentioned, he increases educational funding, and we saw that resulted in California's master plan. But of course, what we're focusing on today is actually the event that ends his presidency, and that's his assassination in 1963. So he has 3 years as president. He's actually heading into an election year when this happens. He is shot on November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. He was there to deliver a speech to the trade union in Dallas, and he is met at the airport by the governor of Texas, a guy named John Connally. So the picture you're looking at is actually the last picture taken of JFK before he is shot. He's in a limo. You can see he's sitting in the back seat with his wife, Jackie. She's in the pink there. And then in front of him are the governor and his wife. There's actually a seat in front of them with the driver of the limo. And all of that's going to be important when you look at all the kind of CSI computer simulations later. The picture you're looking at here is JFK's funeral. And when you're looking at the picture, you see Jackie Kennedy standing in the middle. And on the right-hand side, you see his Robert Kennedy. That's John F. Kennedy's younger brother. He was the Attorney General at the time, and he is later also going to run for president and also be shot. That's the Kennedy curse that we'll talk about. To the left, you see another brother. That's Edward Kennedy, who was also a senator. JFK's children are there, and you notice on the right-hand side that the little boy is his son, who was about 2.5 years old at the time. And he is saluting the funeral carriage as it goes by with his father's coffin on it. And this became you can see the Life magazine symbol there. This was a very dramatic picture that kind of broke everyone's hearts at the time. Okay, I'm going to take you back to the regular screen and show you what will be posted in Classroom for you. This is an Edpuzzle, and it's got some open-ended questions for you. And the part I was going to show you in class was kind of the conspiracy theory ideas, and this video is sort of the refuting of those, showing the evidence that it may have been one shooter. So this is a regular Edpuzzle assignment. I'm going to post the link in Google Classroom, but it works the same as it would in class, so it should be working fine. They've been working so far. So just so you know, these will be posted in Edpuzzle for you. The due date on this, as you can see, is April 19th. And then after that, we're going to be starting the civil rights movement. So again, I hope everyone is doing well. I'm going to post office hours, but I probably will not be in to answer any emails or office hour stuff until tomorrow morning. All right.